Hi there, my name is Vishrit Shah, and I'm a Salesforce certified application architect. I'm here today to record my first video about Salesforce. I've been writing about Salesforce on my own blog that is salesforcestyro.com, but here is my first video on my channel. I decided to record this video as I'm very excited about upcoming Spring 22 release that Salesforce has announced a couple of weeks ago. Uh, uh, there are few key dates and preview instance information available on my website. If you're interested in that, I will drop a link to the description. Uh, but anyways, as I mentioned here, I'm here to talk about Salesforce Flow. Uh, New features that is coming with the Salesforce Spring 22 release. Um, this will preview orgs, as always, will be available from December 16th that Salesforce announced as per their website. However, I do have access to that Spring 22 uh, instance as of now. So I've decided to record this video and walk you through the latest features of that. So let's get started. Okay, I'm already now signed into Spring 22 release preview org, and I'm going to now navigate to Salesforce's setup. A quick confirmation that this is a Spring 22 release org would be looking at that uh, uh, Salesforce's Spring 22 logo with Ruth, the architect, Elephant Architect icon that Salesforce decided. So it is that new logo that you could have quickly. It basically just came and straight away went. So it was real quick confirmation for that. So I'm now in flow setup, searching for the flows now, and then clicked on flows. Um, what you can see here is list of flows that is pre-created or existed in the org, as well as some of the flows that I've played around with. Uh, So with that said, I'm gonna actually click on Flow Trigger Explorer. And before I click on that, if the org is not a Spring 22 release, you will only have a new flow button only. So once you have a Spring 22 in your sandbox or production, that's when this Flow Trigger Explorer button will be available to you. So clicking on that button now. Okay, so as you can see, this is a very quick tool that can give us a quick overview about all the flows, all the record trigger flow that exists in our system. You now have also option to select the different objects. So by default, I have case selected and record trigger is created. You can select different objects from this list as per your needs. So I'm gonna actually stick to case right now, but you can switch between case or account or leads or opportunity or whichever object that you are looking to have a quick overview about. And then over here, you have ability to change the trigger. So you can change the trigger from created to updated to deleted, as per your need. Uh, Basically, before these enhancements, Salesforce was not able to provide a quick overview of, well, what all the types of flow that exist in the system. And it is very important for anyone to know or get that information before starting to develop a brand new feature or a brand new flow, right? So, for example, you got a new user requirement that requires you to develop a new record trigger before save flow on a case object, or after save flow on a case object. Uh, if you are not looking at or glancing through the list, which could be depending on your org, could be a huge list because of subflows and um, uh, before save, after save flows, screen flows, auto launch flows, all those different types. It could be a big list for you to go through, and it might not be very clear based on the description or the name of the flow, right? But instead, I'm very excited about this feature, especially because it gives me a quick overview about that. And if I like, I can quickly deep dive into that too. So let's say, for example, well, this seems like after save flow and it is inactive. So it does provide a quick summary of the name and the status of it. But if you like to, there is this drop down which you can use to, go into either of flow details and version, or you can directly open the flow itself, like I opened another tab. So this is kind of a very cool tool, per my opinion, and it's going to be very useful. Remember, number of flows or echo trigger flows that you add on your object, it's going to delay, or it's going to basically delay the processing time for your users, as well as it's not going to be as good for platform as well, because you can technically run into CPU time limits. Remember, flow is getting powerful day by day. We have seen some strong updates in the past few releases, and we expect to see some more strong releases. Salesforce said it's going to be their core automation tool going forward. So you want to, if you are someone who's starting to leveraging flows more and more, this is probably the right time to organize your flows by utilizing tools like this. And then, deciding, like, you basically want to also decide how many flows you want to allow per object within your org. So it could be one or two flows, record trigger, and then it can be a subflow. So pretty similar. If you're familiar with the Apex trigger, Apex trigger does also offer before save, after save, and before basically create after create triggers as well. And most of the orgs will have one trigger that is basically capable of handling all before and after operations for that particular object. And then you have basically the helper class that will handle all your operations, right? So pretty similar concept here as well. So you can basically have a pretty similar concept of having a one flow per object, and then define the subflows for all subsequent process. So with that said, this is the first functionality that I wanted to talk about. Let's also, there is another very exciting feature for workflow migration over to Flow, right? So as Salesforce announced during the last release, that they are gonna be not releasing any latest updates um, to the any other automation tool, and Flow is going to be their core focus for automation requirements going forward. They're gonna actually before the deprecate flows and before the deprecate processes, they promise to provide a tool that will allow their users to safely migrate from workflow to the flow. So they have released the beta version of that in this particular release. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's take a look at that pilot tool that we were talking about. I'm gonna go search for workflows over here. So where to actually, before we go into that pilot tool, let's uh, navigate to workflow rules real quick. Wanted to show something quickly to you all. Uh, so Salesforce, like, let's say I got the new requirement, and as a Salesforce admin, I'm going into the to the setup and diving into creating a new role. Um, uh, they are basically now throwing this new warning sign to the user saying, well, Flow Builder is the future of low code automation. So, kind of a warning for you where you should be using a Flow Builder, but as they said, they're going to be deprecating this feature and not really retiring that. So you will still be able to, in fact, create this new workflow rule. Now, they said eventually they want to retire this, but not until everyone is familiar with the flow and have ability to navigate to the flow. But well, let's say I want to continue working with the flow, right? I don't want to navigate to flow. You have option to go to straight to Flow Builder from here, but I'm going to actually say no. I want to actually create a workflow rule. And from here onwards, everything is same it is. So nothing changed. I've already created a sample workflow rule for Spring 22 for us to actually migrate it over to the flow. So let's see how that looks, right? So from setup again, I'm going to search for the beta tool. So migrate to flow beta tool under here. And boom, I already have that workflow rule that I've created, all labeled for me, ready for me to migrate over. Kind of a quick notice on the top that says it's a beta feature, so use it at your own risk. Uh, but this is my trial arc, so I'm gonna go ahead and select that. For your production environment and others, you want to, of course, try it on your test environment and dev environment before actually migrating to, migrating for production. But this is my trial arc, so I'm gonna disregard that and continue. So migrate to flow, and we can't migrate to workflow rule because it contains a task workflow actions. Migrate to flow doesn't support this configuration. So currently, well, as we said, this is a task requirement, and it's not going to be allowing us to migrate existing workflow rules that contains the task. So well, that's it. I'm gonna go back to the workflow rule that we created, and actually let's see if it allows me to navigate from here straight, and it did. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this workflow action from here and create a new action. So remove from here, and I'm gonna say add a, oops, clicked on the same button again. So I'm gonna hit cancel. And I'm gonna go back to the workflow rules. Go to that workflow rule again, and that task is no longer, action is no longer available. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on edit and add a new action. I'm gonna say new field update. So a standard field update that you can easily do in Flow as well. So we're gonna test this with the field update. So I'm gonna say field, um, we're gonna actually just update description on this, update description, field to update, and I'm gonna say description is gonna ask me what I wanna update to, and I'm gonna say a blank value or null just to save some time. And hit save. And now let's go back to that flow over here. Sorry, the tool over here, and select that flow again. And let's click on migrate. So now that the task object is removed, this is gonna try and convert the existing workflow with the field update to the flow. So here is, it's providing me some details saying step one, test the flow, and then step two, activate the flow. Switch your workflow rule and flow activations, deactivate your workflow rule and deactivate your flow. So it's basically a quick switch between the two. Uh, as you can see, it is an auto-launched flow in inactive status, and I'm going to say go to the test flow builder over here, and boom, it has already converted my workflow to say, well, a record is created or updated, and my condition was is closed to true. So I'm going to go actually over here. I want to quickly go back to that workflow and show my conditions, right? So as you can see, my rule criteria was case closed equals to true in my workflow. Over here, it automatically given me that entry criteria is closed equals to true. And it is a fast field update. As you can see, it was a before save. Well, it is a good fit for before save. So I'm pretty impressed that it already selected fast field update because it was a same object, same field update, same object as what is triggering this flow. So pretty impressed that it's automatically selected fast field update for us. And then if you look at the update record, let's see what it's doing in the update record, right? So I'm going to click edit element, and in the edit element, if you remember, we said, well, just update the description with the blank value. And it is updating the description with the blank value. Uh, I'm going to quickly look at this description formula. It has created this description formula text as well. So I'm going to formula text variable. My assumption is it is a null. Well, all we are saying is just set it to null, right? So my assumption is this is a formula, text formula that has a null value in it. So as you can see, it's a formula with the null value in that. And that's all it's doing. So it is updating that description to null. Um, uh, Very basic flow to, sorry, very basic workflow to the flow migration, but just to, at least it gives you a good idea about how that pilot tool is gonna work like. Um, uh, to me, as I said, I'm very impressed with it to decide, before versus after trigger for us. It is smart enough that it decides it, which is very good. And as you know, before save triggers are much, much faster on flow compared to workflow itself. So expect to see some good CPU process time saving, as well as, user experience going to be much, much faster than before. So another cool feature that I want to also talk about is um, order of execution, right? So now with this Spring 22 release, uh, with number of flow, for example, let's say you have quite a few number of flow already exist per object. And you want to define, before it was kind of not guaranteed, right? So Salesforce was saying that if you have more than one record trigger flows on one particular object on creator update, they cannot guarantee the order of execution of those flows. But with this Spring 22 release, they now came out with the numbering. So you are in control of defining which trigger you want to execute. Sorry, which trigger flow that you want to execute first. So if you go to, I'm still in the same flow, but if you go to this gear icon within the flow and click on Show Advanced, you have this trigger order. And on the information tab of that, it says you can enter a number between 1 to 2000 to prioritize the order that the flow trigger run for a specific object. So if I want to really run this um, for on the number one, I want to give this one the highest priority, then I have an ability to give trigger order as one to that. So that's another exciting feature. And one last but not least, Salesforce has now also came out with the collection filter enhancement to the flow. So if you remember previously, it was difficult to process more than 2,000 records. You would easily run into, well, it was actually capped at 2,000. So you would, about 2,000, it will easily go run into the CPU time limit exception or other governor limits. But now with this content filter, which is very exciting, Salesforce is claiming to be you will be able to process 50,000 or even potentially more if your object is not as complex. You can potentially go over even 50,000 limit. It's not even capped at that. So unless you have obviously unless you have a complex object that requires certain further processing, it's not gonna stop you at the 50,000 records cap, but you might hit CPU time limit depending on your org. So you want to be very careful with that. But let's look into the content filter. So for that, I'm going to need to create a new flow. So going back to the flow screen and uh, back to list flows and click on a new flow button. So with the new flow, I'm going to say record trigger flow and create. And again, let's stick to the same object called case. Record is created or updated, and I'm gonna say, well, all no conditions. In real life scenario, you want to define the condition. This is just a demo, so I'm not gonna define condition to. Otherwise, in the real life scenario, if I'm not defining any conditions, that means it's actually set to trigger on any uh, uh, record created or edited, which is not generally a good practice. So you want to try and avoid that. But as I said, this is just a demo work, so I'm gonna ignore that. And auto layout may not be able to, justify, doesn't show all the resources and all the components over here. So I'm gonna switch from auto layout to freeform. And after changing to freeform, as you can see, the collection filter is now available, right? So loop was there, collection sort did also come out not too long ago. Now another is collection filter. All in all, Salesforce is trying very hard to make sure records that you're, bulkifying your process filter as much as you can. Number of records that you're passing is they're making sure they are putting it in the batch, allowing you to sort that collection, and now also allowing you to filter that collection too. So I'm going to drag and drop that collection filter and name it as test. And I don't have any collection over here right now. So you know what? I'm going to actually create a new collection. So let's say get record and get case record. And I'm going to say give me all the case records where status does not equal close. And over here, I'm saying all the records, which is collection. So when I'm saying that all the records, it basically is giving me all the case records where status is not equals close. So boom, that's my collection created, and I'm gonna actually connect this to just in case. And then I'm gonna try collection filter now. So filtering, oops, records, and I have that collection over here. And as you can see, I now have ability to add multiple filter collection to that. So let's say if I wanna break that down to, give me all the case that is open for the contact ID does not equal to a specific value. I have ability to do that. And then I also have ability to add multiple conditions over here. So that's a quick overview. Again, I'm very excited about all these enhancements and future enhancement that Salesforce has in their pipeline. So stay tuned. Don't forget to hit like for my video and also subscribe to see more videos regarding Salesforce technology in general. Thank you again for watching, and please put your comments for any questions or concerns that you have down in the comment section. Thank you all. Bye.